if the Raiders tried to say no takebacks, but the deal that would have sent Maxx Crosby to Baltimore is no more. What would have been the biggest trade of the offseason has gone left faster than a NASCAR race. For more, we have none other than senior ESPN insider Adam Schefter. Schefter, what's the latest on all of this?
Well, Trevor, this is a wild story. Essentially, you rarely see a trade the magnitude of the one that the Ravens and Raiders agreed to on Friday night, sending Maxx Crosby to Baltimore for 2 first-round picks. And the only thing wilder and more unprecedented than that is seeing that particular trade be voided due to a physical. But that's essentially what has happened. The Ravens backed out of the trade for Raiders defensive end Maxx Crosby after he was in Baltimore on Tuesday to undergo a physical. We don't know exactly what doctors uncovered during that physical, but clearly it was enough in the eyes of the Baltimore Ravens to say that they could not afford, nor were they willing, to give up 2 first-round draft picks for a player whose knee was repaired, meniscus, and they obviously did not feel comfortable moving forward with that. Now, his agent, C.J. LeBoy, issued a statement tonight saying that Maxx Crosby is ahead of schedule. He should be ready for any team's offseason program, and he will go back to being the game wrecker he's been. But the Ravens obviously did not feel comfortable with the condition of the knee, and that is why the trade that sent shockwaves through the NFL on Friday night was voided tonight, sending more shockwaves across the NFL.
Okay, so that means the market resets for a guy like Crosby and not in the direction that anybody involved with the trade would hope. So what happens between the Raiders now and their Pro Bowl pass rusher?
Well, we are in an unprecedented situation because Maxx Crosby is now back to being Raiders property, and the Raiders need to figure out if they're willing to trade him, what the return would be, and he go get a physical and pass that physical. Is there a team out there that's willing to satisfy the Raiders' asking price and is comfortable with the condition of Maxx Crosby's knee right now? I think it's fair to say that it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, for the Raiders to match the price that the Ravens gave up in return for Maxx Crosby. And that's why it has to be particularly frustrating for the Raiders, because they had this price that a team finally came up to. Remember that the Raiders weren't going to trade him unless they got a price that they couldn't refuse. They got that price, but the team refused to pass him on the physical. And now the Raiders are back to square one. The league year opens Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Free agent moves have been made. Money has been spent. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. But like we said, this is a situation, the likes of which we've never seen before. Amazing how often that happens in the NFL, where something takes your breath away. You wonder whether it can be real. And here's the latest version of that.
The leverage is flipping back and forth between parties. We will stick with Schefter throughout it all. We appreciate it, sir, as always.
Thank you very much.
As Vince Lombardi said, what the hell's going on out here? Welcome in Louis Riddick. Louis, this Crosby news is a stunner. This is a hell of a pass rusher.
Absolutely.
And when he goes in the market, a lot of front offices are interested, and then they think they're out, now have potentially double-dutched their way back in.
Yeah.
With Crosby now available in a reopened market, what is going on in those front offices as they assess whether or not they can and should add this guy?
Yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of calls going on between general managers, team presidents, owners, and their medical staff saying, hey, look, we got to talk. All of a sudden, there's a guy who's available who we thought maybe was out of our price range that maybe now in our price range once again because of the fact that now this trade with the Baltimore Ravens has been called off. And this is why I always say, hey, look, the medical department is one of the most, if not the most important part of the entire football operation, because this league is about availability and it's about future performance projection. Something happened, as far as Baltimore, once they were able to really assess what they got in Maxx Crosby and their doctors got their hands on him and they really evaluated this issue with his knee or what have you, and they said, hey, look, we'll see what they actually say as far as why this trade was called off, but there's going to be a lot of teams now who thought they couldn't get him that maybe now are going to kind of throw their hat in the ring. And you have to look out for a couple teams in particular, I believe. Look, Philadelphia, this is kind of like tailor-made for Philadelphia and Howie Roseman. You may be able to get a premium pass rusher maybe for, a couple years and see if you can wind up, getting this guy into the fold here and making another run at a Super Bowl? The Buffalo Bills, the San Francisco 49ers, the Chicago Bears, the New England Patriots, heck, in their own division, the Kansas City Chiefs, although they would never trade him there. But there's a lot of teams right now who are having a lot of deep discussions about this.
And for Vegas, you feel bad. Panic mode. They thought they had Baltimore's first-round pick next year. They thought they had the number 14 overall pick in this coming draft. They do not. We'll see what return they get ultimately if they do move Crosby. Lewis, don't go too far. We've got some free agency conversation of deals that we are more confident are going to get over the line in just a few minutes. Well hydrated enough to harmonize, reunited, and it feels so good. After 9 years apart, Geno Smith is back with the Jets via trade. If Smith starts week 1, it'd be the third longest span between QB starts for a franchise. Those first tracked 1950. The Jets have had 15 different starters since Geno, 3 of them Super Bowl champs. Smith, Pro Bowler, 22-23, threw an NFL worst 17 picks last year. Spin it to the positive, did have 14 go-ahead touchdowns in the fourth quarter in OT since 2022. New York also getting some help to its defense. They need it. Nashawn Wright coming over from the Bears, 5 picks last season. The Jets as a team had 0. First team to do that in a season ever. Elsewhere, Isaiah Pacheco's heads to the Lions, replacing David Montgomery, who was traded to the Texans. Detroit loves to pound the rock under Dan Campbell, ranking 5th in yards on the ground per game over the last 5 seasons. And Drake May's got a new weapon in wide receiver Romeo Doubs, filling the void left by the Pats' release of Stephon Diggs last week. Doubs led the Packers with 55 catches for a career-best 724 yards last season. Welcome back, Louis Riddick. And Louis, let's start right there. Last year, New England had 1 wide receiver with more than 600 receiving yards. Stephon Diggs with over 1,000, but he's gone. How much of an upgrade, if at all, is Romeo Doubs, soon to be 26 years old?
Oh, he's an upgrade simply because of the fact that this is a guy who is proficient at lining up both in the slot, at the X on the outside as the single receiver, as the Z as the flanker, and he can win in all 3 areas. And that's not to say that there aren't other wide receivers or that Stephon Diggs in particular could not do this, but Romeo Doubs has shown that he can do this at a very high level. Very good route runner, can win at the line of scrimmage, very crafty within the pattern stem, very courageous over the middle, strong with his hands, strong runner after the catch. He can do all of that, and that's exactly what Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel are looking for Drake May. A guy who truly, in those situations where you got to have it, you know you're scheming up for this guy, and you can put him at 3 different positions or run him out of the backfield and really be creative with him. This is what every team is looking for. It's a great signing for them. Drake May has got to be happy as heck right now. For all those highlights, he was 25 years old, so you assume the best days are still ahead. Let's stay in the AFC East. Need some help interpreting the chess moves out of Florham Park. Geno Smith back with the Jets. This is a team with a ton of draft capital the next 2 drafts. What do you make of that move? Well, I think right now what it does is it gives you a veteran who has kind of been around the block, obviously. It's a full circle moment for him. He's kind of alluded to that fact. And I think right now this is a better situation for him than maybe what people think on the surface, because he's now going to be paired with Frank Reich, who's the new offensive coordinator, who has been around the block as well, played the position himself in the NFL, and really can kind of have Geno write the script a little bit differently as far as the ending of his career, which you know he's closer to the end than obviously he is to the beginning. This is an offensive line that's very talented, has a lot of young pieces, has Breece Hall, one of the best young running backs in the NFL, Garrett Wilson, Mason Taylor at tight end. There's a lot going for the Jets when you just look at the individual pieces. Now, I know they haven't won anything, and they don't really kind of inspire anybody with confidence. But this is something I think that the Jets are smart for going ahead and acquiring him, and I think Geno will make the most of this. And ultimately looking for that baton pass from Geno to whoever is the quarterback of the future. He's a bridge. 4 picks in the top 44 in this coming draft next.
Continues, so do the free agent moves as the Eagles finally got involved in free agency. I don't ever worry about them. Roseman knows what he's doing like very few. They help improve the secondary via Super Bowl champion Seattle. Reek Woolen allowed the fewest yards per target of any corner and man last year. Patriots gave offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker a 3-year deal late in the night and got back to work in the morning, a 4-year, $80 million deal with Romeo Doubs. Helps fill the void left by Stephon Diggs. Elsewhere in the AFC, they wrote me off, but I ain't right back. Geno Smith back to the Big Apple, drafted by the Jets, full circle deal. 13 draft, he was drafted there in the 2nd round, and now he is back. Jets starting quarterback through the years.
Not very good.
It's been 10 years since Geno was there. Let's move on. None of the 15 different starters had a winning record in New York. We can continue. There you go. Up, Flacco. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, we know what happened there. Tim Boyle had a rough go. Had some poor starts. Brady Cook also, yeah. All right, anyway. Geno, he's back. Did you know we have a thing? It's pen pals.
Pen pals, wow.
Yeah, pen pals. Yours, I mean, this is the whole thing's so emasculating. The hair is so much better. The graphic is so much better. And the pen he has, I mean, I don't know if people at home can, don't look directly at it, it will mesmerize you. Look at that thing. It's a square stylo.
It works.
I bet it does. So does mine, but let's put you to work on the topic, the topic at hand. It's day 2, and I said to you this upstairs, like, day 2 of the draft to me is different than day 2 of free agency because just because someone waits to get signed to day 2 didn't mean you got picked, and it's just when the deal got done. But who's the deal today you say is value, I like it, the fit, whatever?
I just want to point out how much the cartoonist clearly likes me more than you. I just want to say it.
Right, mine looks cartoonish and dumb, and you look like a movie star. Look at that. Actually, the close-up does me no favors either. The further away we are, the better.
All right, so the second wave of free agency, this is where the 2 best team builders of my lifetime, Bill Belichick and Howie Roseman, lived for the second wave of free agency. We saw it today with Howie Roseman. You mentioned Reek Woolen. These types of one-year deals, they win Super Bowls because of these type of boom-bust flyers on guys. Reek Woolen, one of the most productive outside corners for long stretches of the season. He makes mistakes. But you're talking about a one-year investment. Howie Roseman, he's told me this. He likes to get these types of guys, traits-based guys, in the building, see what they have. He did it with Mekhi Becton. He did it with Alshon Jeffrey a few years ago. Those types of guys get them into Super Bowls. And if they don't, guess what? It's a one-year investment. You move on. It's fine. It doesn't hurt anybody. These are the type of flyers the Eagles love to take. And so they know what they're doing. Everybody in Philadelphia calls into talk radio on the first wave of free agency. Whoa, what are the Eagles doing? It's always this type of move.
Yeah, Commanders fans were complaining at 12:05 yesterday that nothing happened. Now Chenal's in the building. I love that. All he does is tackle whoever gets near him.
He's awesome. He was one of the most athletic guys at the Combine 4 years ago. I fell in love with him then. He's gotten better against the pass. He's always been good against the run. He can play special teams. He'll block kicks for you. He's the man. I mean, there's a lot of guys in that Chiefs team the last few years who knew what winning football looked like. The Commanders could use some of those guys. I love this signing. I'm glad he got that amount of money. It's about $8 million. I think there were some guys in the league who were surprised he got that much. I don't. When you can do that much, coaches fall in love with you.
Who's a team that has you concerned at the moment?
I'm a little worried about the Detroit Lions. And I've spent I bought all the Dan Campbell stock I could 4 years ago. I'm just a huge fan of that entire operation, how they've turned it around. But the strength of their operation 2 years ago was the offensive line. They've had releases, retirements, just regressions, and all of a sudden it's Penei Sewell and then question marks. They had Cade Mays at center, 3 years, $25 million. They had Isaiah Pacheco in the run game today. Last year, their explosive run rate really dropped dramatically, and that was something obviously 2 years ago they were very good at. Jared Goff was getting pressured in a lot quicker time last year than the 2 years previous. So to me, I'm looking at this Lions team that has always been predicated on toughness, on being able to get push up front, and I'm saying, are they going to be able to get that same push, A, and B, has the rest of the division caught up with them? Dan Campbell famously said a couple years ago that NFC title game may have been their only shot. I didn't believe him at the time. He may have been a prophet.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think they were the 1 seed, and they lose at home to Washington. They don't make the playoff next year, and now that we got you sitting here saying you're worried about them. So.
Worried. I'm not saying they're going to get Arch Manning.
You wrote their obit. I think it's. I agree that it's reasonable to have these concerns.
And the way football works, they get so injured 2 years ago. That was the year, and that just breaks my heart from a football standpoint. 2 years ago was their year to win the Super Bowl. Aiden Hutchinson gets hurt. They just run out of bodies on defense. That's it.
Massive effort to be here. We appreciate that. And you see the way the sausage is made. Sometimes a guy scores 83 points. That's what happened tonight. Kevin, we appreciate you.